Talk about this for a few minutes with Scott Bolden, the former the Democratic strategist, chair of the former chair of the D.C. Democratic Party, and then Joe Walsh, the former congressman from the state of Illinois and political director for Mission Democracy. Scott, I'll start with you. I don't think necessarily anyone's thinking this guy's going to beat Joe Biden in a primary, but the issues he's bringing up, particularly age, and there's some others, could point out the vulnerabilities of Mr. Biden. And we're going to talk about some poll numbers in a second, but what do you think?
But we don't need him to point out those issues because the Republicans are pointing out those issues. It makes no sense for Dean to be in the race. He's going to be an annoyance, and beating Donald Trump is the #1 priority. Think about it. He's in the race because Biden's too old and because he thinks the poll numbers are low. When Dean gets in the race, he doesn't help the Democrats in that regard. He hurts the Democrats in that regard because he's an unknown. One, does he really think the Democrats are going to get behind him, give him the nomination when Biden has beat Trump already and it looks like Trump is going to be the nominee on the GOP side? Right. It makes no sense for him to get in the race based on his own analysis. And so there's something else going on here, but I've never been a conspiracy theorist, so I'll leave my commentary at that.
Well, you might be right. You might be right about the fact that, well, from a Democrat's point of view, you probably are right that it's a quote unquote annoyance, as you said. But I do think that some of the issues that are here, Joe, for the current president are real issues that he has to deal with in his own party. For example, the Gallup numbers that came out were very, very interesting because President Biden's approval rating is down, but we're not talking or focusing necessarily on his overall approval rating. His approval rating among Democrats in the latest numbers is down to 75%. Well, previously it was at 86%. So in 1 month, September to October, it's down 11 points. I'm guessing that a lot of that has to do with how aggressively he's been supporting Israel. So there's some on the left who maybe have an issue with that. I don't know, but whatever, Joe, that's not great for the incumbent. That's a big drop in his own party. What's the effect of it?
Well, it's not great, but he's not campaigning yet. Joe Biden's doing his job around the world and here. The Democratic Party hasn't really even engaged yet. There's a race on the Republican side, but Democratic voters aren't engaged yet. Look, this move by Dean Phillips is an utterly selfish move, period. I'm not a Democrat, but if you believe Donald Trump's an existential threat to our democracy, then by golly, we all got to rally around Joe Biden until Joe Biden says he's not going to run. Dean Phillips is putting his own interest, call it what it is, his own interest ahead of what's best for the country. It's a terribly selfish thing to do.
All right, let me get away from Dean Phillips for a minute and just talk about the overall issue then. And the issue, Scott, as I said, the numbers for the president going down among Democrats, does that speak to the political risk of being as supportive, as aggressively supportive of Israel in the current Democratic Party, especially the far left of that party? Is the president paying something of a political price right now for that?
I'm not sure about that. I'd like to see the backup numbers, as we say, because that may be an outlier. If that number stays there for the next couple of months, then I'd be concerned about it. I wouldn't be concerned about it now. But listen, the left isn't going anywhere. They may not like what Biden is doing with his pro-Israel stance, but 70% of Democrats, 70% of America are supportive of Israel. They have a right to defend themselves. We do not support Hamas and their attacks on Israel. What the left is concerned about is that if our position is we're a two-party state in that region, then and humanitarian aid is going to Palestine, and Palestinians are not Hamas, right? Then we need to talk about both. And we're afraid to talk about both in many instances because no one wants to be labeled an anti-Semite. But you can talk about both because we are in support of a two-party state. At least I think we can. And so I don't think that support is waning. They may not be happy with him right now, but let's see if those next polls for each month come out. If it stays there, I'd be concerned.